It was a dark and stormy night in the town of Stewartstraft. One young Michael Tedder was out and about, walking around thinking about his past life as a high school theater kid. He thought about all the things he learned, all the experiences he had, all the friends he made. Oh look, here comes one such friend now. It's Wyatt Bussey. Wyatt Bussey says, "Michael, every time you make me out of Lego, you make my hair look black." And I say, "That's because your hair is black, Wyatt." And he says, "Actually, it's not. It's a very, 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 very dark shade of brown that looks black." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm making you out of Lego, so your hair is going to be black. Okay, dude?" And then I give him like a little noogie, and he's like, "Okay." And then we're best friends. Now, as me and Wyatt are walking down, we're like, "Wyatt, you ever think about the good old days?" "Yes, Michael, sometimes. I'm still living them." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm old." Hey there, it's me, Michael Teddo. You might remember me from that time you went to high school with me, or as the older brother of Joseph Teddo. If you don't know Joseph, he's pretty cool. I recommend you get to know him. He's much cooler than I ever was. And I was asked to talk to you about theater. My experience with theater began in high school. I was a little freshman. I walked into my little drama 1 class, and there were like 8 girls in there. And that was the entire class, me and the 8 girls, and I hated it because at the time, I could not talk to girls. I was absolutely terrified and mortified, and I hated it, and I wanted to quit like every single day for a week. But then Mrs. Bussey walked up to me. She was like, "Yo, Michael." Those were her exact words. She said, "This year's musical is Newsies, and we need guys for it." And I was like, "Well, I'm a guy." And she was like, "Perfect. You show up after school, and then we'll fit you in the show somewhere." And I was like, that's kind of a really short notice for me because I am still not 100% sold on the theater thing. But by the end of it, I was. Newsies was so much fun, so much dancing, so many friendships made. After Newsies, we followed it up with Into the Woods. Into the Woods is like my favorite show ever, so that was great for me. I stood in a corner in a suit the entire time, and I just kind of said cool lines. Actually, I did the same for Newsies. I stood in the corner in a suit and I passed out newspaper. Into the Woods got kneecapped by COVID though, so that wasn't so great. Not many people got to see this. We also had like a little understudy show of Into the Woods. Now, only the seniors would remember this, but this really sucked and no one liked it. But I had a great time during that because I did not take it seriously at all. Me and my buddy Wyatt, we were understudying for each other, narrator and mysterious man. We learned each other's lines, gave each other the blocking, and we were like, let's do it. And that was it. Everyone else was really stressed out. It was quite the spectacle. We like to forget that exists. After Into the Woods, we did the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. I'm not writing all that. I'm just gonna write 25th and then like draw a B. And for this one, I got to shake things up because I was sitting in a corner of the stage. And the entire show, I was just in this corner, not dancing, not singing, and I had this paper in front of me that had all my lines on it, and I just said them, and everyone laughed. So this was my favorite show, 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. Every time we got notes, it was like, "Michael, you're very funny. Good job, keep it up." And everyone else, it was like, "Now, Carter, you're kind of a bit pitchy here, and Haya, you really need to cut out that juggling. Are you going to learn the juggling?" And everyone else was getting all these, like, "You need to do better at this." And for this, they were like, "Michael, you're not doing anything. So, you're doing great at what you're doing." Anyway, Guys and Dolls was the last show I did. Guys and Dolls, And for that one, most of the time, I stood in the middle of a stage in a suit. So I was moving closer to the center. And then by the time I actually did my last show in high school, it wasn't a musical, it was a Clue. And by that time, I was the main character, and I wore a suit, and I was bouncing all around stage. I like rolled around for quite a bit of it. And that's what theater was for me in high school. It was like this big old thing that I would do every year, and it was so fun, just hang out with all my friends after school, pretend to be other people. And you wouldn't think it happens, but over 4 years, the person you meet here is very different than the one I became here. I grew up, literally. I got a lot taller. I learned how to talk to people. I made all these friends, had all these experiences that I learned from. And by the end of the day, I became a better person through theater. I also figured I'd give you some advice because I'm very wise and sage and old. I'm like Aesop. If Aesop was like me, that didn't work the way I wanted it to. But moving on. Advice. The greatest piece of advice I can give is that just because you can't do something doesn't mean you should. And just because you want to do something doesn't mean you can. And that is just the singular greatest piece of advice I can give to anyone. So yeah, overall, I'd rate theater a 10 out of 10, 5 stars, and I would recommend it. High praise right here. Wyatt, what would you say is the greatest thing about theater? And he says, Dear Evan Hansen is the single greatest thing to ever exist. And I say, thanks, Wyatt.